One of the things about Thyrocare is that y'all have reduced the amount of revenue that y'all are contributing to Thyrocare, and one of the reasons is because of the heavy amount of discounting which is probably reduced in the online pharmacy space. You mentioned Reliance, NetMeds, Tata 1mg. All of them are heavy-pocketed players. What is the entire framework looking like when it comes to online discounting? Has it reduced?
Look, so again, there are two parts to it. One, what is our work happening with Thyrocare? Let's first understand how Thyrocare works. Thyrocare today is the largest lab in India in terms of number of tests which are being undertaken. As an example, it does more tests than, from what I understand, Metropolis, Dr. Lal and SRL put together. Right? So I don't think that Thyrocare is not growing. Now, Thyrocare has a very distinct model that it works with over 4,000 partners who in turn connect with the last mile customers. Think of Pharmeasy as a platform being one of these 4,000 first partners, right? So the growth of Thyrocare is a function of the overall growth of the Thyrocare business.
Correct.
And already, as you know, today Pharmeasy as a platform is contributing to more than 12% of Thyrocare's revenue, which was zero.
For Thyrocare, the key disappointment has been that the margins have come down to 25%. At one point, it was known to have margins of 40%, even 50%. When does it probably get back to its peak margins, if that's the plan?
So let me break that. Again, I think the right person to answer the questions on Thyrocare is Rahul, because he's the MD and CEO. But from in the capacity, let's say, of the MD of the largest shareholder of the company, all I can say is that Thyrocare's consistent EBITDA margins were in the 30% range, right? At the time of COVID, these margins expanded to 40%. But if you look at the margins, that is true for all diagnostic chains, right? There was a spike during the times of COVID and then it's normalized. Even today, if you look at our cash EBITDA margin, it's actually 29%. There is a 4% ESOP charge, which is maybe the right accounting policy, but it's a non-cash ESOP charge which is added. Because, for example, Rahul has ESOPs at API.
Yeah.
Those ESOPs get charged to Thyrocare's P&L. So neither are Thyrocare shareholders actually getting diluted because ESOPs are at API, not at Thyrocare. Nor are they paying any transfer pricing to API, right? But because of accounting policies, because Rahul spends his time at Thyrocare, right, those get charged as a non-cash item. So there is no transfer of cash, there is no dilution of shares. And that's roughly 4 to 5%. So if you look at our cash EBITDA margins, we're already at 29%. And I think Rahul's done reasonably good job in explaining this to people, but I'm just using your medium to explain to people that Thyrocare's performance is phenomenal. It's still in the 29% EBITDA range, and this is the ground reality.
I know, but the share is flat on a year-to-date basis. The share is down 53% from the time, you made that purchase in July 2021 or June 2021. In any case, even the revenue is not as good as, say, peers such as Dr. Lal's. That's my point about Thyrocare, that the overall performance, when do you expect it to probably get back to?
If you look at the non-COVID revenue, if I'm not wrong, and you look at the last 2 years, I would say in percentage terms, exclude the acquisition that Dr. Lal made of Suburban, my understanding is that Thyrocare is right up there in terms of the growth numbers, right? So again, I do understand that share price has to be a reflection of performance. There are various factors. I think people at some point of time were worried that, what will happen to Thyrocare if there is some problem with API, and therefore there was skepticism. I do hope that once people do realize that all of the challenges at API level are taken care of, the share price of Thyrocare will reflect the phenomenal performance and the work that Rahul and his team have undertaken at Thyrocare.
So this 100% promoter pledge that you have for Thyrocare, that goes away because your debt is going to be repaid?
So when the debt gets repaid, that will get away.
So it'll go from 100% to 0%?
When the debt gets fully repaid, obviously.
And what's the timeline for that?
It's happening in a staggered manner, right? I am not at liberty to disclose those, but I can tell you that we have reasonable or more cash cover. So what we're doing is Goldman's money was taken through issue of NCDs, which were in 2 different bonds. One bond gets repaid immediately, the other bond gets repaid within 12 months, right, ideally. So we're figuring those details out, but upon full repayment of the bonds, the pledge goes away, right? And I think we have reasonable cash cover to ensure that, bonds get repaid and companies in a very comfortable position through all of the various access to capital that it has to repay these bonds, right?
So API Holdings, the current debt on books is currently the Goldman Sachs debt.
That's right.
Of around 285 million.
Roughly, yes.
Okay, so once that's paid, you become a net cash company.
Yes.
What will the rest of the cash be used for?
No, so we are going to use the rest of the cash. We need to consolidate some of our minority shareholders and minority shareholdings for that, and then the rest for growth of the company.
And growth would mean?
So, I mean, no, just regular business growth, right?
Acquisitions?
No, we're not looking at any acquisitions at this point of time, but I do believe that as we continue to invest in, the company's resources, technology, that is what will require some part of the cash.
Would you consolidate operations, maybe sell off a certain business which is not profitable?
At this point of time, we don't believe that we're going to be looking at selling off any part of the business. There are certain parts of the business where we'll have to work a little harder, but we have a lot of faith in all our lines of business, and I think these will all turn out really well over a period of time.
Okay, now coming to the EBITDA of 60 crores for API Holdings, what do you think you could probably end the year with?
Again, I don't want to make any forward projections because...
Triple digits.
Hopefully, yes, hopefully and beyond that. But the thing is, we have a listed subsidiary in Thyrocare, and I've been told by my legal team not to make any forward-looking statements, so I'll refrain from making any forward-looking number statements.
But is the business sustaining and is EBITDA positive?
Business is doing well. Business is doing well. EBITDA is positive.
And is it profitable? Is it, making money on the bottom line?
It will.
Eventually?
It will, yes.
Okay. Now, just a little more with regards to, the overall strategy, because interestingly, TPG Temasek have a shareholding in your company. We have Mr. Pai, who is going to be participating in the rights issue as well, and they hold shares in Manipal hospitals as well. Is that a possible strategy which has been thought about, that eventually that would probably become a part of Manipal, something similar to what other hospitals are looking at when it comes to an omni-channel play?
I think today Dr. Pai, TPG Temasek are all very clear and consistent that this is an independent investment, and this company has its own independent future and independent strategy, right? And I think that's how we're looking at it. Obviously, one thing which I've learned in life is to never say never. But as things stand today, I can tell you with reasonable confidence that we're looking at a completely independent growth journey for this company, right? And there is a reason why Dr. Pai has invested in his personal capacity. So has Temasek, so has TPG, and not through Manipal balance sheet, right? It's not that they are lacking any capital, but it's very clear that this is a personal investment for Dr. Pai. And please remember, Dr. Pai led the Series A round for Pharmeasy, as it was 91 seats back then. He led the Series C round of Pharmeasy. So he's, very well known to us, the entire team. A representative from Mr. Pai's office, used to be an observer on the board. So they have tracked and known our company since 2015. It's not like, one fine day, Mr. Pai woke up or we woke up and we went to him, right? So he's seen our performance, he's tracked our performance, he's known us very, very well. And there's a reason why he's continuing to double down and in his personal capacity. And please also, I'm sure you'll know that Temasek and TPG also have been our shareholders since 2021, right? So it's not like a new thing where somebody's trying to do a backdoor entry or things like that.
In terms of valuations, what's the target in mind? $5.6 billion or $9 billion, which was the IPO amount?
There was no price first that we had put for the IPO. Aspiration has to be $100 billion, right? Why $1 or $2 billion, right? We'll get to that. I think, look, we are all just 35. At least me and my other co-founders, and our entire team, right, has really been with us through all the thick and thin, right? And we have, phenomenal folks, right? Our CFO Siddharth has left a phenomenally well-paying job in Singapore and relocated over here because he truly believes in the value of the company. Someone like Rahul left the position of a senior partner at BCG and is here. Or someone like Gaurav, who leads our growth, right, left a phenomenal job at Zomato and he's leading it with us over here, right? So I think the team that we have is quite phenomenal, right? And with this team, right, why should we stop our aspiration at a smaller number, right? We still have a very long way to go and we'll continue to do that.
Okay, quickly, just before we, wrap up, I wanted your thoughts on the entire startup space. We've heard about Byju's, but separately, it's just been a funding winter for us. 2023 hasn't been that successful for the entire industry.
I think I wouldn't want to comment on any one specific company. I can only say that so many startups today are phenomenally well run, phenomenally well governed. The founders have their mind at the right places. I think it's a realization for all of us that along with growth, we also need to focus on profitability. And I think that is the mantra which I am seeing most of my other fellow founders or CEOs in startups talk. I mean, if you look at 2021, the mantra was growth because that is what they thought will create value. The focus right now is profits. But in all of this, I think the biggest focus of Indian startups still continues to be the fact that there is no other place in the world, in my opinion, where you have an app to get done of anything and everything. Right? Today, the service quality, the affordability of getting things done in this country is just outstanding, literally, right? I mean, from getting your shoes to getting your clothes to getting decked up to your electronics to car. What is it that in this country you cannot do, right? From paying 1 paisa to 1 crore rupees. I still think that the best digital ecosystem is in this country. And a couple of years of tough times will only make all of us turn out to be better, right? So I'm an eternal optimist, and maybe all entrepreneurs are. But I do think that along with consumer delight and being eternally optimist, I think now all founders are realizing that profits are also as important, if not more, or in fact much more important than just growth. And I think we're all recalibrating to that, right? So there is, everybody's recalibrating. I think it'll happen in a good way.
Okay, all right. Siddharth, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining in and talking to CNBC TV18.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Ekta.